Welcome to another edition of the Fourth and One podcast. This is the final draft prospects edition. We have come to the end of the road. Cue the Boys II Men music. Was that your favorite R&B band in the '90s? By the way, Nick, Boys II Men.
No.
No. Well, what was your favorite R&B band in the '90s?
I don't have one.
Oh,
Can you name it? Can you name a couple of them, and I'll tell you yes or no?
or Boys. Just say it's Boys II Men.
I'm not going to say that.
Motown Philly.
I won't commit to that
Okay.
right now.
Wow. I mean, I didn't even think there was really a debate about that. Although maybe you're Destiny's Child fan. I guess I could go with that. Be like, oh, I got Nick to laugh. I get to keep my trophy. All right.
Oh, yeah. Darn. I'm so frustrated that I won't get that.
Come on, man. You know you're jealous.
Yes. How did you know? I'm gonna have to figure out a way to eat my feelings the next couple of days.
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't get that
Watch
trophy.
out, Wendy's.
Alert! I'm gonna be there real soon. Get those spicy chickens ready.
That's right, because he's buying all of them. All right, man. It's been a long process for you, I know. With the amount of film you watch a lot more than I do.
Well, that's because I don't have a family to deal with.
I have two children
You have two little
who
tiny-
need things like
you have
food
two- you
and
have-
baths and
You have two
nighttime.
tiny little human beings that demand your attention.
That's right. So, and I had to. I don't know if you guys saw Sunday Sound Off this week on Easter Sunday, but
If not, you can check on Twitter.
that's right.
Both of our Twitter accounts.
I spent a lot of time this week writing a sign for one of the guests on our Sunday Sound Off show with Mick Schaefer and Seren and help me out,
Josh Briscoe, yeah.
Briscoe. I was going to say
From
Josh. I was going to say
8-10-12.
Josh Brolin, and I was like, I don't think that's right. I don't think we had Thanos on.
He took time from his busy schedule to come on the show.
So, but then there's some guy named Therese.
I've heard of him.
Therese
I just want to know. I mean, the penmanship you used on that board was that. Were you really good in arts and crafts or what?
I don't know if you're able to tell. That was arts was not my strength when I was in elementary school.
We all have our struggles, Todd. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's not look backwards on that. Let's go forwards.
I never learned to draw.
I can't write to the left.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, Nick, look in that camera right there. Give him Magnum, and we are.
You didn't think I was going to do it, did you?
No, I didn't.
I did.
I love it.
Got him.
That needs to go on. That needs to go on Twitter too. I'm sorry, man.
Sam Hartle's going to put that in a promo
That's
now.
right. As he should.
Banana,
As he should, because
banana.
it's beautiful.
I'll show you to turn left.
Yeah. So, other than the president of Malaysia, if you could,
You mean the Prime Minister of Micronesia?
you know what? If people haven't seen Zoolander, they're
They're
like turning off their pod, like wherever they listen. They're
Yeah.
like turning it off and like screaming right now.
I don't think our listeners are that violent, but I have more faith in them than you apparently do.
I know. Next time I see Sam Hartle, I'm going to tell him that this podcast studio needs to be at least 3 times bigger.
Yeah. I'm not even going to continue with that because somebody will take it as an insult if I continue the rest of that movie quote. Nothing offensive. I'm just saying that we're very appreciative of the podcast studio, the lights, as long as I don't put them on the strobe effect.
Yeah.
We are a big fan of it all.
So I feel like at this point we need to do like a crossover podcast with Screened on the Spot where we make people watch Zoolander for the first time.
Hey, the movie you could do, it's what Therese and Charles Robinson are doing on Yahoo Sports this week, the Draft Day movie. They're going to talk about how bad it is.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's how you do your
Kevin Costner as John
That's
Dorsey.
how you do a crossover right there, okay?
Well, they would do a Screened on the Spot, which is another one of the podcasts we have here at 41 Action News. They although I guess technically 38 the spot, which is why it's Screened on the Spot, but I think they would do it. But Yahoo not so big into the movies.
I don't know. Therese and Charles, they're going to have that one. I'm curious to listen to it.
All right, yeah. I think they miscast it instead of Kevin Costner. It should have been John Dorsey back then. Even I would watch that movie.
And the way the NFL helped control that movie, from what I watched on it, I don't think they would have wanted Dorsey in that one. I'm just saying.
I think it would have been a good time. I would have just watched for the outtakes at the end. So
Yeah. There wouldn't have been any outtakes. It would have been the real him the entire time.
all right. So hey, do you want to talk cornerbacks at all?
Yeah, we should probably do that at this point.
You want to get to
You
that?
wandered off again.
Now that we're like 15 minutes in.
Uh-oh.
All right, I think we're only like 6 minutes in. Hopefully, not everybody's turned it off because, look, man, let's face it. Secondary is probably the biggest area of need for this team. I mean, I think you can argue whether edge rusher or an individual position is a greater need, but secondary safeties and corners are two of the top 3 or 4 positions of need. So taken as a whole, secondary is probably the weakest position, is weakest group of players they've got. So this hopefully will get you informed and get you jacked up for whoever they're going to for whoever they're going to pick and add to that secondary to kind of make some improvement here.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs did a good job, obviously, adding Tyrann Mathieu and Bashaud Breeland. Those two helped them make sure that they didn't have to take that as the exact top 2 picks if they don't want to.
Yeah.
So they can find better value. Now, would we like to see it completely fixed so that they can go to Super Bowl, or if they sustain an injury, there's not a big drop-off? Yeah, that would be fantastic.
So do you think – I mean, Jordan Lucas, Armani Watts.
Yeah.
I guess they still have Daniel Sorensen, although I'm not convinced he's going to be on the roster come the Jacksonville game to open the 2019 season.
I'm not optimistic about that. And then you got Leon McQuay from
and
the draft pick from 2017.
Yeah, who spent some time on the practice squad last year. He's kind of bounced back and forth between the 53-man and the practice squad. And still a developmental guy. Played corner at USC, though, I believe, right? So
he
he's
did,
kind of a transitional developmental
just like they
prospect.
did with Eric Murray as well.
Murray, of course, gone. Eric Berry, of course, gone. And we'll get to the safeties in the second part. But in addition to Bashaud Breeland, you've got Kendall Fuller, and you've got Charvarius Ward, who I thought played pretty well, but still need to see a lot more from him before you feel comfortable with him in that position. Just assess real quick what you think of the cornerback position group right now and what they need to add to that group for you to feel comfortable going into the season.
In the draft, I would definitely like to see an additional corner that they select somewhere between the first and third round. I'd like to see them get some value in that to compete with Ward and be insurance if Breeland happened to accidentally get hurt at some point in the season. So you'd like to see that. Obviously, they signed Keith Reese recently, so they brought him back. So we'll see what he's able to do.
And he's a guy who was injured with the Chiefs
last year. Yes.
Yeah, and wasn't able to stick on the roster, but went to the AAF, the now shuttered AAF. May it rest in peace.
Our podcast lasted longer than that league, and they spent billions of dollars.
Dang right. Yeah. Can we get the Panthers owner to give us millions of dollars?
It was the NHL. The NHL.
Oh, yeah.
It was definitely
not Richardson or whoever.
Richardson's gone.
Whoever they sold it to.
No.
Still, can we get the Hurricanes owner to give us millions of dollars?
I'm good with the arrangement we got right now.
I'm going to send an email.
I wish you the best in your future endeavors.
But anyway, Reeser played really well in the AAF, and so they feel like he's got a chance to contribute to this roster. I mean, but are they looking for long-rangey guys? Are they looking for fast guys? Are they looking for guys? Because I know Spagnuolo's system requires a lot of versatility, but they do a lot of press, they don't seem to do, at least historically. They don't do a lot of like force and contain, and so you maybe probably don't need a guy who's like an ace tackler. What do you think they are looking for?
Well, what I think it ends up encompassing altogether is I think they want somebody that has long arms, ideally somebody that's at least 6 foot, if not taller. Somewhere between 6 foot to 6'3", but if they're willing to trade off in some spots, depending if they have certain skill set, maybe they're elite in a part of their game or their wingspan or something along those lines. And I think they want people that are good tacklers at corner. I do believe that, and at safety as well. So if somebody,
do you think that's like a top, like at the top of the list though?
I think it's like third or fourth, because I think the number one thing they want is I think they want somebody that is able to read the patterns, read what the offense is doing, understand what the offense is doing, and be able to pick up and pass off in coverage what has to be done and play the assignments necessary. So I think a high football IQ
Yeah.
is more important now than it used to be for what Steve Spagnuolo would want in the scheme.
That's why I feel like a guy like a Rock Ya-Sin, who I've seen mocked to the Chiefs a couple times. And he's a guy probably has first round talent if you just look at his physical gifts, but only played 1 year. Excuse me, only played 1 year at the FBS level. Doesn't look like he's real comfortable in doing the pattern matching. Doesn't look like he's real comfortable playing in some of those. And doing some of the things he needs to be to hand off. Just doesn't look like he's played enough football. So is he a guy that maybe I didn't have him real high in terms of a fit for the Chiefs because of something because I didn't feel like he would be a fit in terms of the pattern matching and some of the stuff you were talking about.
Yeah, I don't have him at I personally don't have him at the top of the list by any means. I do think he's a fit lower down. If I remember correctly, I believe I had him
second round grade,
I had
maybe
him fifth on my list, if I remember correctly.
So more of a second round grade for him then.
Second or third round is kind of that wheelhouse where I think you would want him to be. Now, I've obviously heard from some people that he may end up going somewhere between 20 to 32 potentially. Yeah. So I mean, there's a possibility they could miss out on him.
Yeah. So who is your favorite corner in this draft?
Byron Murphy is hands down my favorite corner of the entire list.
And why? I mean, when I watched him on tape, very, very instinctive guy, very fluid hips, very balanced. Not the fastest guy, maybe not a burner, doesn't have elite speed, but quality cornerback.
I think at the combine, the biggest thing he was able to illustrate is how he doesn't have wasted motion. He doesn't have wasted footwork. When he's doing his quarter turn, it's smooth and it's fluid like you were talking about. There's not those extra steps. And when you take those extra steps, that's how receivers beat you. So you have to fix those when you get to the NFL. Every little minute, small detail that you didn't think was a big deal in college, it becomes the difference between having a job and not having a job in the NFL within a year or two. So that's kind of one of the things that you kind of have to remember. You can be the greatest athlete in the world, but if you don't have the mental toughness and you're not willing to do all the small things correctly, then they're going to bounce you because there's another athletic guy. You're getting the top athletes in the world. So,
and I know you personally, huge fan of Washington cornerbacks.
Yeah. I remember another guy that they had. Hopefully this one, if Byron Murphy is the pick, hopefully this one turns out a lot better.
So assuming that there's a big run on defensive linemen like we expect, and assuming that the Chiefs can't find a partner to either move up or move down with, if Byron Murphy's there at 29, it's a steal, right? Or it's at least good value.
It's good value. My fear right now is the Raiders in front of the Chiefs at that, I believe it's 26. That's kind of my fear right now. I'm a little nervous.
I think they're at 24 and 27.
Somewhere around there. I know they're 24 for sure. I can't remember because I know the
Chargers.
It's
27,
26, 27 because the Eagles, I know that's in that range too. And then Chargers is right before the Chiefs. So I'm actually a little nervous about the Chargers and the Raiders, the Chiefs, two opponents, because at the end of the day, the AFC West and the corner value goes from 20 to 32 is when the corner value starts and when teams are expecting to start drafting those guys. Yeah, the corner value in the AFC West is a high priority because you're going against Patrick Mahomes. So everybody wants to figure out a way to stop him like the Patriots did. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on when the draft rolls around.
Who else do you like as maybe a potential fit, specifically first-round guys? Because there's only maybe two other guys that I really, if they took him in the first round, I'd be like, all right, I think I'm okay with this.
Well, I think a name they're going to have to entertain is going to be Sean Bunning of Central Michigan.
Yeah.
I think people are going to be surprised by that and be like, what? He's going in the second, third round. I've actually heard that there's some teams that are considering him at the top of the second.
He's got like Alani Johnson, who's really in this draft process, has started moving up and up and up, climbing a lot of people's draft boards.
I would say it's been revealed publicly that it has. I think NFL teams have probably been on that board since probably after the combine and the testing and in the private, public, the visits.
Yeah. So who else? What do you think of Greedy Williams? A lot of people think Greedy Williams out of LSU is the top corner in this draft. Obviously, it sounds like Tyrann Mathieu wants him. Said he'd be happy to help him do some tackling drills, which is one of the flaws he has. Not an elite tackler. I also look. He's got incredible speed, incredible ball skills. I love the guy's moxie at the position. I also think you talk about the wasted motion, stuff like that. His footwork needs a lot of work, I thought. But he's a patient guy. The one thing I have concern with him, and actually a lot of the guys in the top, is they get pretty handsy down the field, and I worry about how that's going to translate when they go into the NFL. But what's your assessment of Greedy Williams?
I think he's at his. I think he's comfortable whenever he is able to drop in his zone and read the routes and drive on them.
Oh,
I think that's kind of where his wheelhouse is. I mean, his long arms are kind of his biggest asset, so I think that's kind of something that teams are going to be intrigued by.
He doesn't always locate the ball well when he's in man.
He's going to have to do a better job of whenever he's trying to deflect the football, not creating pass interference, because he likes to jump and at times he'll hit into the receiver or he'll grab, like you said. And in that aspect, that's going to be something that's going to be a work in progress. I mean,
Well, when you got a coach like Steve Spagnuolo, though, who has, he came up as a secondary guy, and you've got Dave Merritt and guys like that. Do you see enough clay there to mold Greedy Williams into, an elite cover guy in the NFL at that outside corner position, or would you be passing on him at 29?
Personally, and this is kind of what I say about a lot of people. Since I'm not in the room and I'm not able to interview them, and this was one of the benefits I had whenever I went to the combine, is I got to talk to a lot of players one-on-one, and I got to kind of do my own little interview in that regard. I was kind of able to tell if that guy had the fire and the passion. And so I think the organization knows one way or another from their interviews if he does or doesn't. So if they end up drafting him or whoever they draft, I trust Brett Veach and Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt and Sam Madison to be able to turn that player into what they think he can be.
Yeah. Who are some other guys you like? I know DeAndre Baker's a guy that at times has been a lot of people think he might be a possibility for the Chiefs. And look, he's fast, he's fluid. I don't think he does a great job in crossing routes and situational awareness, and so that might be an issue with some of the things they want to do. But he's a smart and instinctive football player in a lot of other aspects when it comes to covering a wide receiver down the field.
Who are we talking about again?
DeAndre Baker out of Georgia, defensive
back.
Yeah, are you aware? He plays cornerback for the Georgia Bulldogs.
I got a message. Okay.
Oh, my bad.
So I had to check it out for you.
Oh, okay.
Making sure they weren't.
Are we interrupting your social time?
You got jokes right now, and I don't appreciate them.
I have to protect that trophy.
We already established that you're keeping it. Like I was never going to take it to begin with.
Okay.
So I mean, that's yours. You didn't cut my mic, did you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because I just heard a noise and I was like, I feel like I'm talking to myself.
No, I'm just waiting for you to explain why you're in love with DeAndre Baker. So Nick Jacobs said he would take DeAndre Baker #1 overall.
That is literally not even remotely close to what I said. I said what I will say though is Baker is a physical corner. He likes to physically reroute the wide receivers with his hands and body positioning. When the receiver breaks, though, he likes to grab the jersey just like Orlando Scandrick did last year, and Scandrick had a lot of holding penalties. Almost led the league, or not the league, but the Chiefs in him. I think he had 8 or 9 at minimum. And then he got benched for Charvarius Ward.
Yeah.
So, Baker, I don't think he's got the top end speed, and I think he gets a little too physical for what the Chiefs are trying to do. So he's not at the top of the list, but I'm not going to be upset because anybody that they get, I think will be an improvement in corner.
Yeah, it'd be hard to
I'm going to be honest.
It would be hard to get worse than what they had at a lot of times last year. Anybody else a little bit farther down? We've talked about Byron Murphy, Greedy Williams, Rocky Sin, Sean Bunting, DeAndre Baker. So, that's a lot of people's top 5. Anybody else a little bit farther down that list that you really like and you'd like to see the Chiefs get on maybe that second, third round?
Amani, the cornerback from Penn State. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his last name.
Yeah, no, it's Aruwari. I don't know.
No, that's actually right. Yeah, you nailed that one.
I don't know that I nailed it, but Amani O, like Albert O, the tight end at Mizzou.
Yeah, no, you're right because I pulled up the pronunciation key.
Yeah,
I was double checking on that one. Yeah, it's
totally nailed it. Never had it down.
You did a great job on that.
Never doubt in my mind.
Yeah,
it
literally says it. Oh boy.
Anyways, out of Penn State.
Yes, out of Penn State. The reason I'm a rather large fan of his, I think he's got great length, reach. He reminded me a little bit of Nnamdi Asomugha whenever I was watching his tape in terms of his stance and how long his arms were. I know he played a lot of off and zone coverage, and he trusts his technique. He didn't get a lot of penalties because of that. I think
he's one of the guys who had the best technique I saw, for sure.
I think he's disciplined. I think he doesn't panic. He's got good speed. I like the attitude he has to go with it. And he's willing to take on blocks and blow up plays in the backfield. And he finds himself a good position.
Yeah, and versatile, too. He's a guy that they moved around. He wasn't a guy that just stuck on the left or right side of the field, in the defense they played at Iowa. So I think if they could get a guy like Amani with that 61st or 63rd pick, they'd be making a big improvement in that secondary.
For sure.
Anybody else?
Well, I mean, the article will be out, and that'll have more in depth on some of the other corners.
All right, there you go.
Have in that.
Lonnie Johnson. What do you think of him?
Lonnie Johnson,
Kentucky.
I know. I'm aware. Thank you.
Kentucky. Pretty sure it's Lonnie. I think I nailed that one too.
Yeah, no, you did good on that one. No, look, he's got good build overall. I think he's got the ideal long arms that you want for the scheme. Pad level, he does a good job keeping it low. Given how tall he is, that's actually very hard to do with his height, and that's not as typical as you expect. He's going to have to improve his jam at the line of scrimmage, and then he's going to need to be a little bit more physical and run support and not give as much separation as he does when the receiver comes off the line.
He's a guy. Do you think he's worth a first-round pick, or is that too high in terms of his value?
I think for the Chiefs it's too high, but I know there's a team or two that I've heard is intrigued by him. They're at the top of the second or maybe late first, so we'll end up seeing that one.
All right. Hey, we're going to come back and talk safeties here on 4th and 1. Welcome back to 4th and 1. I am Todd Palmer. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to us banter a little bit about the cornerbacks. That's obviously a position the Chiefs absolutely must address in this draft. I still think that they need to get better at safety too, though. One of the interesting things that came out during the course of this offseason was in free agency. Obviously, the Chiefs signed Tyrann Mathieu, but there was also talk that they had tried to also sign Earl Thomas to pair with Mathieu. Do you think that provides a window into what the Chiefs are looking for in pairing with Tyrann, or is that maybe just, hey man, if we can add a potential Hall of Fame guy, let's do it?
I think the Chiefs were doing whatever they had to improve their secondary to where they didn't have to worry about it in the draft. And having Earl Thomas, as Terez and I like to call him, an eraser like that, and Herbie Top does too. That's just a guy that has sideline to sideline speed when he's healthy, and for him to be able to be on that with the options would have been endless in their ability to do whatever they want in coverage and pressure however they felt like. So if you can find a guy who has some of those skill sets, then I think the Chiefs would definitely look to that opportunity. I don't know if it's fully going to be out there in that way with this draft class, but if they can find a guy who can help alleviate some of the pressure, I'm all for it.
I think my favorite guy, and one of the guys I think that has the best range to be able to go sideline to sideline in the draft, is Nasir Adderley out of Delaware. And I know that people are probably rolling their eyes because we talked about the possibility of them drafting a Central Michigan corner in Sean Bunting, and now we're like, yeah, or they could get the Delaware safety, and people are probably like, oh my God, why are they going for these small school guys? But Adderley, you're high on Adderley too, as far as safety too, aren't you?
I think he's in my top 4. I mean, I think he's a ball hawking safety. I thought he tracked the ball well, which was a problem for that Chiefs secondary last year. It's why they didn't get as many turnovers as they should have. They had no idea where the ball was half the time, especially Steven Nelson, who never turned his head around. That was a big problem for him. Good luck in Pittsburgh. He's capable of playing center field, so I think that's kind of one of the things that kind of translates to the Earl Thomas talk we were talking about. I think he's fearless in run support. He makes his presence known to opponents, and then I think he's got a natural feel for routes.
So who would be, if the Chiefs take a safety at 29, who are you hoping it is?
I think if they were to take one, I guess sneaky suspicion it'd probably be Juan Thornhill of Virginia. He's another instinctive safety. You know, he reads and attacks immediately with his speed, and he was a sure tackler. He understands how to properly break down from what I saw. He does a good job of keeping outside leverage. If they need to use him as a corner and have him transition down there, they're capable of that. I liked his range, and I think he's got really good closing speed.
Yeah, and he's got the long arms. He's kind of what we talked about, the frame that they like for that secondary position. So anybody else you think? I know I've seen some people say Taylor Rapp and or Jonathan Abrams out of Mississippi State, Rapp out of Washington, or Abram out of Mississippi State as possibilities for the Chiefs there at 29. I think Abram is a little too similar to Matthew, and maybe there's too much overlap there, so I don't know that they'd be a great pairing. And then Rapp, I'm not sure is fast enough to do what they want in coverage. But what are your thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, Abram, I think he's more of a run support enforcer. I think he wants to hit the ball carrier, whether it's a receiver or not. I think he wants to hit him as hard as he can to dislodge the football.
Do you see either one of those guys as fits, though?
I think if they wanted to use them in a strong safety purpose, I think they could. But I think from a free safety perspective, I think that window is going to be very limited there in the first 2 rounds if you want that.
So who else do you think? Who else do you think that the Chiefs should consider in those early round picks, or maybe is there a guy you like deeper in the draft?
Selfishly, I really like Amani Hooker from Iowa. I think Matthew would have to play more of the free safety in that regard because I think Amani's more of a strong safety with his speed and his ability. But man, that guy's got a knack for understanding the route combinations and how to bait quarterbacks into making the throws. I think he has a great concept of angles on the football field and how to get there in run support and blitzes and pass coverage. So I think that's a very underrated trait for him. And then I think he's got good vision once the football's in his hands when he picks it off. And he adjusts. You don't see it, you don't really get to appreciate it fully until you watch enough games, but how quickly he adjusts his angles and adjusts to the receiver and the routes and the tracking of the football and everything, how naturally he does it but doesn't lose speed. It's just a very rare quality and he's one of the few that has it.
And he's a guy probably with that pick they got from the Marcus Peters trade, number 63 overall with the Rams. That's probably the range.
I'm hoping
that 61, so. 63. If Hooker's there, there's good value there if you get a guy like that in that range.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I do believe he's going to go somewhere in the second round.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I alluded to it earlier. Spagnuolo is a guy that comes with a heck of a pedigree for the secondary. And in fact, Brett Veach today when he met, today.
Thursday. He met on Thursday.
Brett Veach earlier this week when he, it's getting late. I'm getting tired. But earlier this week when he met with the media for his pre-draft press conference, he said that, really the first position that they talked about when they were assessing this defensive roster was the secondary. So let's hear from Veach on that conversation with Spags.
He's a secondary guy. And Steve, he's coached all over. He's been a coordinator, as we know, been a head coach, but I think he's a secondary guy by trait. And we've had a lot of dialogue, and we hit the ground running, and that was the first group we looked at. I don't think there's been a position group we looked more at than the safeties and the corners this year. And he's added some great dialogue, and he's brought in some really good coaches too. Dave Merritt and Sam Madison are awesome. I mean, they're really good, and they're intense. And there are some different traits they look for in their D-backs as well. So we've shared a lot of communication, and we've logged a lot of hours looking at this corner and safety class. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That was Brett Veach talking about new Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo and his affinity for all things secondary. Along with Sam Madison and Dave Merritt, I'm just wondering, what do you think of this group? I know that you love Eric Bieniemy, you love his fire, you love his passion, things like that. Is this a group that you think can bring some of those same qualities to the table in coaching up this secondary?
I think having both those guys with what they're going to need to do right now, I think having two coaches that can help the squad kind of get up to speed, because the reality is this is a roster that has the potential to go on a Super Bowl run right now. So anything you can do to make it better as quickly as possible, you're going to have to do. So if you got two coaches that are that savvy and that smart, along with Spagnuolo, a defensive coordinator who understands how to properly utilize people and has that part of the passion in his game, I think having all those is only going to be an asset for this team.
All right. Hey, we're going to take another quick break, and then we will come back. I think there was a schedule release this week.
There was a lot going on this week.
Yeah, you got any thoughts on that? I guess we'll find out on the other side of this break. Welcome back to 4th and 1. Todd Palmer, joined by Nick Jacobs. I just realized I didn't do the Nick thing this week. I guess it kind of wore off.
I'm glad because we needed to move forward.
Progress is possible, people. So anyway, hey, but you were kind of talking about as we dumped out of the B block about the Chiefs and Super Bowl hopes and dreams, and there's another man in town who goes to bed dreaming about Patrick Mahomes hoisting the Lombardi Trophy almost as often as you, and his name is Brett Veach. Let's hear from him now.
We know that we're close, and we have a pretty good team, and we were inches away from going to Atlanta for a Super Bowl, and I think there's no one more driven than Coach and our staff up there to get this thing, and we're not trying to build for the future. We're trying to win now, and we're going to stay aggressive, and we're going to try to put the best roster that we possibly can out there, and there's some moves that you just can't make, but I think whatever we can do, throughout the course of this period and after this period, I don't think we're ever going to stop to be aggressive and push the envelope here because we want to we want to put Kansas City in the best position to to win a Super Bowl.
Nick, I know you get this question a lot, so do I.
I'm just gonna play that as my whenever people call and I don't answer.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna play Brett Veach saying that so people know that I'm in a good mood.
Yeah.
I want to put everybody else in a good mood too to hear the GM say that. And here's the thing, and I mean this about him, and I mean this about Patrick when he was talked at the press conference last Monday. They both have talked about Super Bowl, and here's the thing: you had the Eric Berrys, the Justin Houstons, the Tom Hollies, the Derek Johnsons of the world. They all talked about Super Bowl. They all talked about how they wanted to be there. But at the end of the day, whenever there was that mini camp and OTAs back a couple of years ago, 2 years ago now almost, and those guys didn't show up. And I'm not talking about Derek or Tamba. I'm referring to some other people: Barry, Ford, Peters, Houston.
Yeah.
Even though two of them have become two of the top paid people in the organization, when those guys didn't do that. To me, any Super Bowl talk I heard from them after that was just it was empty. Yes,
yeah,
rained hollow. Yeah. Because if you're not willing to be there, and I'm not saying you have to practice on the field, but to be there, be committed, be bought into it, and be helping root your teammates on, in whether it's in film study or on the football field, if you're not willing to do those things, then I don't want to hear that. And whenever I hear Patrick Mahomes genuinely say that he didn't care about any of the awards. He wants to win a Super Bowl. I genuinely believe that. And if they can get enough guys in the locker room to believe that and a coaching staff that can put them in the position to do that, the future is really, really bright here.
Well, and here's the thing. As he found out last year, the awards will come if you put in the work and you have the talent and you allow yourself to be coached, and so I don't think that Patrick Mahomes needs to worry about money or awards or things like that, because if he just goes out and does the things that he's capable of doing, it's all going to come. It already is coming. So I agree. I mean, and I hope that
I hope Veach and Mahomes have actions that'll back it up, not just saying it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it is empty talk with those guys, and I hope that people are getting excited. I know that people look at this. I'm excited about this team. I still look at the AFC and I think the Chiefs, without even knowing what they're going to do in the draft, I already think the Chiefs are the Super Bowl favorites in the AFC just because of Patrick Mahomes. And there's some things that they still need to address on that roster, but I think they're going to get addressed. And I think a lot of the answers to those questions are going to come this week, as they go through this draft process. And I think that people should get more excited. And I don't know. I mean, talk to me on, we'll come back next week. Talk to me on Saturday. It's possible that they'll draft a bunch of guys that I can't stand and I didn't like when I watched them on film, and I don't feel like they're going to be a good fit. And maybe I'll feel a little bit different. But right now, nothing that's happened since that overtime loss to New England has made me feel has tempered my enthusiasm about what this team can do in 2019. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't upset when they got rid of Houston or Barry or when they moved on from Ford, because I felt those guys all talked a big game. They were never going to be able to back it up and genuinely be able to get a locker room to follow them. Mahomes can do that. And Mahomes can do that, and I think Tyrann, I think that's another guy that's going to be able to do it. And he's doing a phenomenal job on social media already, trying to pump everybody up.
Love Honey Badger.
So if they can get a couple more guys like that just are a positive influence in that locker room, that get everybody to not only buy in but to go that extra mile.
Hey man, by the way, I know when we talked free agency, we talked safeties a couple months ago.
Yeah.
you weren't as high on Matthew in
With
some
the way they
respects.
were using him, no, I was not a fan of how they were using him.
But after getting to see him in town a little bit and paying a little bit closer attention, do you feel like Honey Badger do care now?
Oh, of course, of course. Okay, so that's what this whole setup was for.
Yeah, no, it's just I just need to pop off another joke.
All right, sounds good. But yes,
No, but I mean, when we talked about it, you said you weren't really interested in Matthew because Honey Badgers don't care.
that's not the way I phrased
That's
it.
exactly check the record. That's exactly what you said. I will go pull that bite, sir.
Go for it. Swing for the fences.
Hey, okay.
I probably did at this point.
No, you did. Yeah, you did. I think it was one of those late night ones, and you were like, "Shut up, move on." Speaking though,
Yeah.
the Chiefs' actual path to a potential Super Bowl came into focus, and with the schedule released this week, they start off with 2 on the road, 3 of the first 4 on the road. They've got 5 primetime games, including a Thursday game at Denver, which I always hate Thursday road games. They have a tough game against Houston, then they've got to go on the road on a short week, 2 Mile High. But they've got Green Bay at home, the Colts at home on Sunday Night Football. They'll play in Mexico City against the Los Angeles Chargers. They got to play on Sunday Night Football at the Bears, although I assume that game could get flexed. New England, a lot of people, we all thought New England was going to be the September, like the season opener on Sunday Night Football. Turns out that's going to be a 3:00 game in December. So totally nailed that.
They better hope Brady stays upright by then.
Yeah. But what were your just initial impression on the schedule?
I mean, for me, I was surprised Houston wasn't a primetime game. To be able to start marketing Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, I was really surprised they weren't willing to do that, and that they leaned towards the Colts instead. I was a little surprised on that aspect. Obviously, the Chiefs Packers game is going to be that's going to be the one a lot of people are going to be ready for that one.
Yeah,
and that,
Mahomes Rodgers
on Sunday Night Football for everybody to watch.
Yeah,
that's I'm looking forward to that one. I wish I could watch football like that every week at that caliber. That's going to be fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I don't see anything that I'm frustrated with or think is overly difficult overall. I think it's a solid schedule around. I think what kind of gets a little frustrating from time to time is the Thursday night games. It just seems like they love to put the Chiefs. They didn't against this year. They had the Chargers at Arrowhead, but it seems like they really love to put the Chiefs on the road against AFC West opponents on a Thursday night, whether it's Oakland or.
Yeah, it's been Oakland several times. Of course, Oakland's also had to come here, but it seems like the road team usually struggles with that game. And I know that the Chargers rallied and won.
And then Denver did with Manning back in 15 in that week.
That was a little bit, that was a different situation. I think, Manning, I just think those teams were maybe a little better. The Chiefs those years.
Oh.
But like last year, the Chargers struggled for 3 quarters before they won. I just think it's really hard to go on the road in those situations, especially against an opponent that's so familiar with you on a short week. Look, the Chiefs have a tough schedule, but I don't think that there's anybody that they should fear. Is there a stretch? What do you think is the most difficult stretch for them?
I honestly, I think I don't think there's a difficult stretch for this football team now that they actually have a legitimate defensive coaching staff. I know that sounds weird to say, but even if there's some issues on offense this year, I still think that they'll have a defense that can keep it to a reasonable level to where you don't have the same problems or issues. So I'm actually not as concerned, and I don't think they have as many heavy hitters back to back as they normally do and normally would. Now, I think that stretch of the Packers Vikings is going to be interesting, but the Chiefs are they'll play that Thursday.
Then at Titans, and then in Mexico City. That
stretch. Yeah, I think that stretch, just from a travel and physicality perspective, I could see that one being a little bit, especially. Yeah, going from playing the Titans physically on the road, then I'm going to go to Mexico. I think that stretch is going to be a little less than ideal.
Into the third month of the season, don't get your bye until Thanksgiving, basically.
Well, they had practice with it last year since it was the same time.
Yeah.
So, but I know that it seemed like the players all enjoyed the fact that they actually get to spend Thanksgiving with their family.
No, it'll be nice. Dustin Colquitt heading back to Tennessee to see his family 2 years in a row on Thanksgiving. It'll be
potentially. We don't know. Maybe they come to Kansas City this year. You never know.
No,
I'm sure you'll know because I'm sure Dustin's sending you an invite to join
Yeah.
the Colquitt clan. That
Yeah,
weekend.
I'll call in from the Colquitt house on Thanksgiving next year.
That sounds like fun.
No, I don't. I don't think the restraining order's been processed yet, but I don't know that I will be invited to the Colquitt family Thanksgiving.
I think you'll be fine.
So hey, I know we've kind of started this thing where we like to interact with the fans here on 4th and 1 with the check the tweets.
Yes, check the tweets.
So hey, Nick, before we sign off on this extended edition
Yeah.
of the 4th and 1 podcast, let's check the tweets, man.
Yeah. All right. First one's from Uncle Kip.
Hey, Kip.
I bet he can throw the football a quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
I know that's Uncle Rico, but Kip,
Kip was actually QB1 before Uncle Rico came in. Everything Uncle Rico learned, he learned from Kip.
All right. Well, he asked if the Chiefs pick a wide receiver in the first round, are they tipping their hand in the Tyreek Hill situation? Or the Tyreek situation, is how you put it, sorry.
Well, look, I think the Chiefs need to address the wide receiver position one way or another anyway. They lost Chris Conley. They haven't gotten a lot of production outside of Tariq from the passing game. Sammy Watkins, as we've seen, is injury prone. And look, they don't have, you got Travis Kelce, but they're thin at wide receiver now too. So I think they were going to have to address it anyway. I don't know how much they love Marquise Brown. I like him a lot. If he's there, would they have taken him no matter what? I don't know. But yes, I absolutely think that if the Chiefs, especially if the Chiefs move up to get a guy like Marquise Brown, I think that there may be that suggests that they're at least nervous about the future with Tyreek. And look, we found out this week that his 3-year-old was taken away from him. So obviously this investigation is progressing. The Division of Children and Families in Kansas has enough concern that they pulled him from the home. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that necessarily means that Tyreek won't be on the team or will be on the team or what that means. But I do think that it's got to give you some pause if you're Brett Veach and the Chiefs about giving Tyreek Hill a long-term, big money contract like they were talking about a few months ago when there was talk that he might become the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. I don't know that you can do that anymore. And so I think the Chiefs have a really tough decision to make. And I think if you can get a guy like a Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, you take it, and that gives you options down the road.
Well, what all I'm saying on this is that regardless of what happens with Tyreek in his circumstances, you always hear me say this on the podcast and on Twitter. The best thing you can do is to always create an insurance policy, especially when you're a team that has the roster like the Chiefs do. I know they have some issues and some holes overall, but your offense is a strength, and you need to keep it to remain a strength, and you need to add additions as well to always keep wrinkles in it and to keep it evolving. So you noticed that whenever Kareem Hunt went down, you didn't really have a good backup for him that could match what he did. Damian Williams did the best he could, but you didn't have anybody that could help sustain that production. And whenever Sammy Watkins got hurt, you didn't have somebody who could help sustain that production. So you saw those things fall off, and you can't let that happen again. So obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill in that regard, but the guy's one of the most elite players in the league in terms of speed. And if you lose that, defenses they attack you a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So if you can maintain that threat of speed, and if that's Marquise Brown, which I feel is one of the few players in this draft that can do that, if that's what you have to do, and if that's the sacrifice you have to make, then that may be what ends up having to happen, because you have to keep the offense to maintain its efficiency in the way that you do.
Have you allowed yourself to dream at all about what an offense would look like with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, Andy Reid calling plays, and then Tyreek, a healthy Sammy Watkins, an informed Travis Kelce, and a Hollywood Brown?
Yeah, no, I've thought about it a lot when I was watching tape. I would be all for it, and I think it. And here's the thing: Sammy Watkins may get hurt at some point. So,
That's true. That's true. But week 1 they might set an NFL scoring record.
All right. Next question comes from Greg Atkinson. Peter King just dropped his mock that had the Chiefs trading 29th and 63rd for Frank Clark. Your thoughts if such a thing happened?
No, that's too much to give up for Frank Clark, in my opinion. I know that the Seahawks want a first-round pick. I would feel more comfortable with the second-round pick. I feel like the Chiefs kind of set the market for a young, informed edge rusher when they got a second-rounder next year for Dee Ford. I wouldn't want to pay a whole lot more than that. Look, at number 29 is kind of a second-round pick in some respects because it's so far down. But yeah, I mean, look, he's young. He's still 25, so it's not like he's coming to the end of his career. You're still going to get some good value out of him. But I think if the Chiefs can get a young, controllable defensive end who will cost a lot less, that would be preferable to me, because you got to remember, if you bring in Clark, you've also got to find a way to sign him long term to make it worth it.
Correct, and that's where the concern would be. I know he's got the proper age you want, and I know he's a great pass rusher, and he would do well in this defense. But I know he had a little bit of a past issue. If you go search it on Google, whenever he's coming out of college, and that's you got to kind of debate that a little bit, and then also you're going to have to pay top dollar like you weren't willing to pay for Ford. You're going to pay a similar contract, if not more.
Yeah.
So then, like you said, you're going to have to pay that amount. So I mean, ideally, if you feel you can get a guy cheaper and younger, like you said, controllable, then yeah, that's what I go for.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Final question here that we're going to go with today. It's going to be from Richard. Will the Chiefs make a trade for cornerback, safety, wide receiver, and or defensive end?
Make a trade?
Yeah, a trade.
Like for I guess I don't.
That's
trade
the
trade
question.
up, like trade up in the draft, or just
Let's tackle
or just like
it.
trade Jalen
let's-
Ramsey. Trade for Jalen Ramsey.
Let's tackle both of them. Go for it. We'll cover all bases. Real
Yes,
quick.
they're going to
Lightning round.
Yeah, no. I have no idea. I mean, I think it depends on how the board falls, and if there's a guy that they're absolutely in love with who suddenly becomes available. Brett Veach has shown he's willing to be aggressive. But let's not forget, the Chiefs, they have a lot of holes. This is a draft, I think, that matches up in some respects in terms of defensive line depth, secondary depth. I think it matches up well with some of the Chiefs' needs. So, look, they could also trade back. And I know people may not like to hear that, but the last time the Chiefs traded out of the first round, they ended up with Chris Jones. The sky may not be falling if that's the way it goes. So, I don't know. I mean, yes, they're going to make some trades.
All I can say is that in terms of draft, the three guys that I'm kind of curious about if they trade up for would be Farrell from Clemson.
Yep,
And then
love
obviously Sweat if he drops
Montez Sweat.
significantly from the heart condition. And then finally, if you have to leapfrog the Titans for Marquise Brown, which I'm kind of fearful they may have to. And we'll talk more about that on the mock draft podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are kind of those are the guys I would be willing to give up the second round next year maybe, or for one of the Chiefs' second rounds and try to keep the 49ers one. That's something that I would try to maneuver in that regard. But I'm also not upset if some of those guys aren't on the board that you want. I'm not against trading back in the second round, trying to pick up a third or a fourth.
Yeah.
And just getting massive value in that regard. I'm totally for that as well.
Nick, I got to say, I'm very proud of you.
Okay.
You didn't once today say, I'll answer on Twitter later.
Yeah. No. It's already late anyway, so well.
Yeah, no. Well, I think it's because time's less of a factor with the when
yeah,
we're recording.
Yeah, that's
today.
true. Yeah, that's true. I had to get back to some of
We're
my
not
other
trying to
responsibilities.
squeeze this in
Yeah.
in the middle of a shift. So,
Yeah.
Hey, we probably got a little bit long-winded, and for that I apologize. Or I say you're welcome if you're the kind of people who can't get enough of Nick and I's witty repartee.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, man. Hey, draft this week. We both wrote mock drafts where we just kind of looked at need, value. How one way we could see the board dropping. And Nick has a lot of stuff on kshb.com/Chiefs, looking at every position. The corners and safeties will be out there over the next couple of days. You guys should really go.
I got a surprise article I'm doing on Wednesday.
Oh, well, you guys should.
I haven't even
There you
told
go.
you about it.
All right. Well,
You don't even know, bro.
apparently, I got more editing to do.
I'll let somebody else take that honor. Apparently, that you don't.
I'm just saying.
appreciate.
Thanks for giving me more work, Nick.
Hey, we have a very talented web department
That's true. That's
that can
true.
do it, Todd.
And-
Just because you want to keep it all to yourself, doesn't mean that
Believe
you
me,
have to.
a lot of times they're like, Nick writes a lot about Chiefs, and I don't know anything about Chiefs, and I'm like, all right, I'll do it.
That's literally all I read about.
Yeah,
so
no, I know. So anyway, hey, but check it out. We're gonna drop mock drafts. What we think's actually gonna happen Thursday night later in the week. We'd love if you guys would check it out. Give us your thoughts. Feel free to interact with us. We only mute like every 10th person on Twitter, so a good chance that you'll still be able to get to interact with us later, even if you even if you make Nick angry.
I do not agree with what Todd said. That's an inaccurate opinion. I appreciate all of you, and I try to respond to everybody that I can.
All right. Hi, Mom. Take care, guys.
We'll see you.